Have you ever wondered how the U.S. public school system works, or are you thinking about moving here or just moving here and have lots of questions and very few answers? I'm Fred Johnson, a public school teacher of 11 and a half years, and I'm going to try and share my best answers to a lot of these questions. I'll also make this video in Spanish if that's preferential for you to view it that way. So, first question I want to tackle. How is the U.S. public school system structured? What are the different grade levels? A lot of different countries around the world structure their schools completely differently. And when you land in the United States, you're like, I don't know what an elementary school, middle school, I don't know what's the difference. So let's talk about that real quick. First thing you know is there's different types of schools. There's public schools, that's what this video is about. Those are in general free, no charge, and anybody can go and they have to provide you with a seat. You don't need to apply. You need to register, but you don't need to apply. You can go to a public school. There's private schools. These you do have to pay for, and there is some sort of admission process to get in. There are charter schools, which are kind of a weird blend of public school and private school. They're publicly funded, but they kind of operate on their own rules. These you generally need to apply and get accepted to as well. They have different sets of reputations around the country. Some places consider charter schools to be amazing. Others consider them to be terrible. And then there are virtual schools. These are fully online schools. Every state has one where you can attend classes sometimes some of your day, like you can take 1 or 2 classes online, or you can do all of your learning completely online from home. Then you've got your different levels. So you've got pre-K, which is going to be 3 to 4 years old. You've got elementary school, which is kindergarten through 5th. You usually start elementary school, kindergarten, at age 5, and you go till about age 10 or 11. So it's 6 years. Kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. You hear these referred to as elementary schools. Some places refer to them as primary schools or lower schools, or grammar schools, they called them back in the day, but in general, those are elementary schools. Then you have middle school. This is 6th grade to 8th grade. Generally, you start at 11, finish at about 14. Those ages can vary for a year or two on differing factors, but in general, you start 6th grade around 11 years old. And then you have high schools. High school goes from 9th grade to 12th grade. You start high school when you're 14-ish and typically finish around 18 years old. Then you have post-secondary. That's your colleges, your universities, your community colleges, your technical schools. Note that school is no longer free at this point. So, where do you pay and what's free? Public school is free from elementary through high school. Kindergarten to 12th grade. Some places have government subsidized and free pre-K. You can get scholarships for post-secondary, but where it's free for everyone is kindergarten through 12th grade. Also note that in the United States, which is different from a lot of places around the world, you are legally obligated to go to school through age 16, meaning you can't drop out when you're 12, 13, 14. You have to go to school, and if you have a 14 or 15-year-old and they stop going to school, you as a parent are legally liable for that, and you can go to court for a thing called truancy. So if your child is below 16, they have to go to school. You can help decide public school, private school, charter school, virtual school. There's also homeschool, but they have to be in school. After 16, they can continue on by choice or they can drop out. What's the difference between elementary, middle, and high school? Talked a little bit about the different age ranges there, but some of the big differences are going to be in cost, class size, and options. So for between elementary, middle, and high school, there's really not a difference in cost if you're at public school because it's free. But keep in mind, the higher that they get, there are going to be some different fees. We'll talk a little bit about that. They go into high school a little bit more. Other one is class size. So for elementary school, typically you're going to have one teacher, maybe a teacher assistant, with about 12 to 20 or so, maybe 22 students. Different states have different class size limits, but usually in elementary school, you are going to have smaller class sizes and more teachers. Also, it's going to typically be one teacher for the whole day. They might go to a different teacher for a specialty class like art or physical education, but in general, it's one teacher for the whole day. Then you're going to have middle school. Typically, that's when they start changing classes. I mean, you're going to have 4, 5, 6 different class periods, and they will go to a different teacher for English, different teacher for science, different teacher for math, different teacher for social studies. They'll have 4, 5, 6, 7 different classes a day in middle school. Come high school, you are going to have Even bigger classes, usually the class size limit is highest in high school. Some don't even have limits, and it's usually a bigger school. So elementary schools are usually small, middle schools are usually kind of mid-size, and high schools are typically huge. In big cities around the country, you can have high schools with 3,000 or 4,000 students. Also, the options. When you're in middle school, because there's less students, you usually have less options for electives. When you get to high school, there's less high schools, but within the high school, there's a lot more options for classes you can take and tracks that you can go on. Are public schools really free, or are there other hidden costs like supplies, lunches, or field trips? Great questions. Public schools in general are free. In other countries, sometimes you have to pay for your transportation, your uniform, so on and so forth. In general, in the United States, public school is completely free. With that said, I would factor in to have some costs. It might be field trips, technology equipment, sporting events, things like that. It is very helpful to plan to spend something. It is typically free, but you are going to incur some fees here and there, especially if you want your child to be involved, which is highly recommended. Keep some cash set aside for them to be able to participate in events, sports, buy a yearbook at the end of the year, participate in dances and things of that nature. How are students placed in grade levels, especially if they're coming from a different education system? Great question. When you go, if your student moves when they're 6, 8, 10, 12 years old, they obviously already were in school somewhere else. So how do they fit into the U.S. school system? This is typically the age ranges of where you start. Kindergarten starts at age 5, 6th grade starts at age 11, 9th grade starts at age 14-ish. Now, just because you're 11 doesn't automatically put you in 6th grade in the United States. They're going to look at some transcripts and records and whatnot, probably make their best guess on where your child should be at. You also probably have some input here. Pro tip, if you're coming from another country and your child is still learning English or doesn't know any English, I would put them a grade level below where they would be for their age, because they're already coming in behind, not knowing the language, different school structure, different school system. Your kid has a lot to adjust to just by moving here. To put them in levels of classes that they aren't going to be ready for is just going to make it even more difficult. So they might be a year older than everybody around them. That's probably better than being a year younger than everybody around them. What kind of support is available for students who are learning English? So you're going to hear these terms a lot. ELL, English Language Learner. ESL, English as a Second Language, which isn't always accurate because sometimes it's your third language or your fourth language. Schools are required to make accommodations for students who don't speak English. Depending on where you are, if you're in a major city, New York, Los Angeles, different places in Texas, Miami, and Florida, where there are a lot of English language learners, you are going to notice that there are a lot of resources for English language learners in the school, which is an advantage. But a disadvantage is that there's probably a lot of other people that speak your language, which is going to make it harder to learn English. So there's pros and cons. If you're in an area where maybe you're the only family that's learning English, school's probably not going to have that many resources for you. But the full immersion is going to come naturally because there's nobody to speak your language with. So keep in mind your school is required to make accommodations here, and sometimes they'll forget or they're so overwhelmed, so you need to remind them. And advocate for yourself. You need to advocate for your child, and you need to teach your child to advocate for themselves, because while public schools have requirements for what they have to provide, they're also very often overworked and under-resourced, and so things drop. How does the grading system work, and what does a GPA mean? Great question. So this grading scale, this is typically for middle school and high school. Elementary school has a lot of different ways to do it, but you'll see letter grades, and they go A, B, C, D, and F. A is the best grade you can get. B is considered good. C is considered average. D and F are considered bad in general. F is the worst grade you can get. D is considered passing in some places. Others, it's not. In my experience, with a D, you could pass a class, but if you got all Ds, you wouldn't have a good enough grade to graduate. So you'll see these letters. If your child is bringing home A's and B's, good. It's also helpful to hear from your teacher, talk to your student teachers about how they're graded. Your child might be doing a lot of this, and that's not getting graded, and they're not doing any of this, and that's what the grade is on. So what is the teacher actually grading the student on? And then you'll see numbers. The numbers correlate with the letters. So in general, an A is a 4, 4.0, B is a 3.0, C is a 2.0, D is a 1.0, F is a 0.0. What do these mean? Every time your child takes a class and they get an A, they get 4 points toward their grade point average, which is also referred to as a GPA. When they get a B, it's 3 points toward their GPA. C, 2 points, D, 1 point, F, 0. Now, sometimes these scales change a little bit. If you take an honors or a higher level class, you might get 5 for an A, but this is the general scale. And the way a grade point average or a GPA is calculated is you take the letter grade a student got in a course. If they got an A, they get 4 points. So if you have 6 classes and you get 6 A's, you do 6 times 4 and divide it by the amount of classes. I have a spreadsheet you can use to help calculate your GPA, but talk to your school, talk to your guidance counselor, talk to your teachers, advocate for your student. What's their GPA? What I've found most often with students is they didn't know how their GPA worked, and by the time it mattered, when they were applying for college, trying to graduate, it was too late to change it. GPAs in the United States are used to calculate graduation. You need at least a 2.0 typically to graduate from high school, a 2.0 to be able to participate in sports, a 3.0 or higher to go to college, and the higher you get, the more scholarships you can get to get college or university paid for. So you want to keep that GPA in that 3.0 to 4.0 or higher scale. You will see people with GPAs higher than 4.0, meaning they took all super high level classes. What types of classes or electives do students get to choose from? When they're in elementary school, there's usually only a few electives, some music classes, some PE classes. And then as you get to middle school and high school, the options vary greater. This depends completely on your school. Bigger schools have more options, but these are some classes that you will see offered in high schools across the country. Some have even more than this. Here's what's important. Your student often has the option to choose some of these classes. A lot of it depends on availability. Their guidance counselor helps with this process. What often happens is guidance counselors in schools, again, are overworked and under-resourced, and they'll just throw students randomly in classes, and the student may or may not like it. So you need to advocate for yourself, find out when do students get to choose these, what's the process for getting your choice, and if you miss the deadline, are you just out of luck, or can you switch your classes? So it's very important to find out what that process is. And one of the reasons is because when you're in high school, you can take some of these classes. Some offer business classes, marketing, computer classes, and your student can earn real world certifications and get real world skills and earn and start real businesses while they're in school. And if this is something they're interested in doing, rather than paying for it at a college later on, they can do these things while they're in high school. So getting your child in the right classes is extremely important. Another thing to consider is, in my experience, students who were scoring low in math or reading had to take extra math and extra reading classes, and then they didn't get to take as many of these electives. So it's important to know what the process is for choosing your electives. When I was in high school, my guidance counselor asked what I was interested in. I told them I liked computers. They signed me up for every computer class that existed at our school, and I learned skills in high school that I still use today that helped give me pride and dignity and a sense of accomplishment in my work even before I got a high school diploma. So getting your kid in the right electives, super important. How involved are parents expected to be in their child's education? There are parents that are not involved at all, and there are parents that are over-involved. In general, the more involved you are in your child's education, the better off they're going to be. A lot of times things will slip, especially with families that move to the United States. A lot of times the parents don't know how the system works, and so they don't know what questions to ask their child. Get involved, get educated. I know there are a lot of parents that are sometimes afraid to go to the school based on their status. I get that. It's worth going up there and asking the questions and finding out how things work with the school. How can I get involved? One of the things I'm trying to do is get involved in the campus where my child attends school as a volunteer, because then I have access to the campus and I can serve the school and know what's going on. So as involved as you're able to be based on your schedule, and if you can't participate in anything, at least send emails to your teacher, saying, your child's teacher, saying, hey, I'm so-and-so's mother, I'm so-and-so's father, their education is important to me, how can I support them, what are their needs in class, how's their behavior, so on and so forth. An involved parent is a win for the teacher, for the child, and for the parent. Are public schools safe, and what measures are taken to protect students? This varies a lot across the country. There is, of course, a lot of tragic news about school shootings and school violence, and that's all real. It looks more prevalent in the news than it actually is, but it is something to be aware of. So here's what I can say. Make yourself aware of what school policies and procedures are on metal detectors, on weapons, on fire drills, on fights. Know who the safe people on your campus are. Know what police departments are connected, what law enforcement agencies are connected to your school and campus. And if your child walks or rides a bike or takes a bus to school, make sure that you're aware what their route is, what they need to do in case of an emergency, and who the safe people are on campus that they can talk to. Having an advocate on your child's campus that's there is extreme benefit for you and your child. So no school is a perfectly safe place, but ideally they are safe places, and you can help with that by knowing who and where to go. Hope this video has been helpful. Like I said, I'm going to make it in Spanish as well. And if there's any questions I can answer, please throw them in the comments so I can continue to make videos like this. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.